All right. Hello, my name is Jimmy Owens, and I am here to present my video quiz for Chapter 3 through 8. I will first begin with Chapter 3 and answer the questions, and then I will continue to Chapter 8 and do the same. All right. Beginning with question 1. What key idea or ideas did you find in this chapter? Well, for Chapter 3, I realized that there were four types of listenings, which is appreciative, empathetic, comprehensive, and critical. Which appreciative is what we use as far as going to a musical or an opera. Empathetic is when we're speaking as far as like maybe an example would be with a counselor or someone that you have a problem that you're trying to talk to. Comprehensive is listening as far as in a lecture or in some other setting where you're trying to retain information. And critical, that's listening to discover like if what the person is saying is true as far as maybe a politician or maybe your friend's telling you a story but you don't know if she's kind of telling the truth or not, so you be a critical listener in that thing, in that aspect. Some other key ideas I found is that there are four main types of reasons for being poor listeners, which was not concentrating, listening too hard, jumping to conclusions, and focus on delivery and appearance. Now, I found this very interesting because, as far as me, I'm somewhat into politics, so I look at political speeches, and I do realize how I find myself looking as far as maybe the accent that the speaker may have, or the clothes the speaker may be wearing, or certain things that kind of sidetrack me in order to find out and not getting the true message of what the speaker is trying to display. So I found that very interesting. But I also found it interesting how there are ways to become better listeners, such as taking your listening more seriously and concentrating on it harder, being an active listener, taking notes, resisting distractions, resisting your mind from wandering off, suspend judgment as far as the book giving the example, or don't try to jump to conclusions so much. So that was very interesting. Okay, question number 2. What did I learn that I didn't know? Well, for starters, I did not know that there were different types of listening, which I found that very interesting. Even though I do realize that we do listen differently, I never knew that there was, there like this listening is different from this type of listening. So that was very interesting to find out. Another shocking thing I found out is we only listen to half of what we hear and retain even less than that. So even us having a conversation with our friends, it's so funny how much we actually remember that next day, or how much we don't remember rather. Um, I found another story was interesting in the book is how we let our thoughts wander. As far as the example the book was giving of how the woman was in the meeting, and the guy that was in she was in the business meeting doing the company, and he was saying something about how he had a another firm or something in Florida, and her mind began to wonder about her vacation and how nice Florida is and beaches. So that just shows you how easy it is. Like one specific word you may say can get someone completely off topic and not even listen to your message of what you're saying. Um, Again, trying not to focus on looks and appearance, because that's something I realized that I did without actually thinking about it, and how that can affect me actually hearing the person's speech simply because of what they have on. You know. Another thing I didn't know is taking notes improves listening. Like I always knew taking notes improved your retaining of information, but also it helps your listening skills as well. So I found that quite interesting. All right, going on with question 3. Why are these ideas important to public speaking? Well, this helps you understand the speaker's message. If you don't get so off track and so off focus with certain things, you'll actually be able to understand and get the points that the speaker is trying to present to you, instead of focusing on what the speaker has on, or other things, or as far as getting sidetracked and thinking about another thing. If you just stay focused, that'll help you actually get the speaker's message. Um, you might miss something if you're not paying attention, and good listening skills are required for careers. And basically, in any career that you're going to be in, you're going to have to be a good listener. Even with me, I work at the subway on campus, and I have to hear people's orders of what type of breads, what type of sandwiches they want. And if I keep asking them and not actually listen to them and retain the information, they can become upset. So I have to always be an active listener and hear what they're saying. Question 4: how can these be used in personal and professional life? Like I said before, jobs need good listeners. As far as me, since my major is Spanish and my minor is education, I have to be very focused on my listening as far as hearing how my future students will, pronounce words in Spanish, how they will, as far as listening and also reading as well. So I just have to be very attentive to that. It's also kind of important when you're trying to be an empathetic listener to a friend, because if the friend is talking to you about their problem, their situation, and they feel you're not listening, they're not going to come back and talk to you. So that's kind of very important, to be a very active and empathetic listener. And also, you won't miss any details or any main specific points of the speech if you're an active listener and actually retaining the information at the time. All right, moving on to chapter 8. The key ideas in this chapter was about how you need to support your examples, which means, as far as supporting your examples, having hypothetical examples, which actually help make you more credible. Actually, it relates to the audience better. You need to use examples. Using examples improves your speech. If you use examples that actually your audience can relate to, that's actually credible, that helps make your speech a lot better. Statistics, putting not too many statistics in there, because people don't like numbers, and more than likely they're not going to remember those numbers. But if you put some here or there to make your speech or reinforcing what you're saying, it actually helps it become more credible. Your testimony, if you put like have a peer testimony of someone who's experienced it firsthand, or an expert testimony who's backing up what you say, who's been in the field for years and have an expert degree, that also helps you become a more credible source as well. What did I learn from the chapter? Well, I learned about the amount of credibility that examples, statistics, and testimonies give a speech. So from someone hearing your speech and you just talking, or you saying, or you're not citing your source and just saying, well, I heard that 10% of people don't drink alcohol, something like that. I mean, that your audience is really not going to believe you. They're really not going to take that information into heart. So you have to keep that. But if you have, according to the Department of Alcohol and Drugs, that they say this, that makes you more credible, because that's coming from a credible source. Then again, talking about hypothetical examples, that was a good way to connect to your audience. Yes, and like I said, citing sources improves your credibility. If you say a statistic or something that generally everybody doesn't know or isn't aware of, you should always cite that. Question number 3. I learned that this importance of this is it makes your speeches more credible. It makes the speaker more believable. If you have information backed up with statistics and sources, it makes you more believable. Peer testimony comes good with first-hand experience, and also expert testimony as well. Question 4. How can this be used in my personal and professional life? I think I found this most useful is when I'm debating or speaking with a friend or an employee or an acquaintance about a certain topic, such as politics, religion, anything else, anything that is kind of controversial. If I'm discussing a political issue and I back it up with a source and say, this is what this comes to, as long as it's not a biased source, it helps credit what I'm saying and helps them understand the information, especially when I'm trying to prove a point. And like just to reinforce that, citing sources is very important in making your speech credible and true. And I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you.